Greetings, this is another reader. Welcome back to my channel. On my channel I have two videos about books that would make awesome heavy metal songs. In those videos I selected books that are, in my opinion, most metal. In this video, however, I'm going to go through books of different genres that have one thing in common. The music. Either the characters are musicians or music is an essential theme of the book. There are 3 non-fiction books and the rest are all fiction. If you are searching for books about music or musicians or simply about music fans, well, you found the right video. The very first book that I want to show you is the biography of Freddie Mercury called Bohemian Rhapsody, the definitive biography of Freddie Mercury by Leslie Ann Jones. This book focuses on the life of Freddie Mercury from his childhood, the boarding school, then when he grows up, when he flees to England, and then he meets his future Queen bandmates and they form Queen, Fame, and so on. It covers different aspects of Freddie's life in separate chapters, and it focuses a lot on his time beyond the Queen. But this is kind of justified since it's Freddie's biography, and there was more to his life than Queen. He also had a strong passion for opera, and he had a few solo albums. I found out a lot about Freddie from this book. If you are a Queen fan or particularly Freddie Mercury fan, I recommend this book for you. Oh, by the way, I just love this edition very much. Just look how it opens. And it has no damage here. Definitely an amazing book. I'd love to read this again. But I wish the photographs were colored, not black and white. In this outstanding biography, former rock journalist Leslie Ann Jones, who toured with Queen, mines mythology, rumor and gossip to reveal a shy and enchanting individual. From Freddie's birth in Zanzibar to his family's escape to London, Queen's phenomenal success and Mercury's tragic death from AIDS, no stone is left unturned. Based on access to key figures, this riveting biography is an accurate account not only of how the world saw Freddie, but of how the legend saw himself. Before I go on to the next book, I have to make a confession. I feel like I am stealing it from another booktuber's video. Last summer, a booktuber on the channel Books Around Me, her name is Yulia, she is from Russia, she did a video about books and music, where she focused on biographies of different bands and artists. And this is where I saw this book, I Am Ozzy by Ozzy Osbourne, the exact same edition. Yes, I do kind of feel like I'm stealing from her, but hey, this book is absolutely amazing. First of all, just look at the edition, it's very beautiful. Alright, what do we have here? Here we have a biography of Ozzy Osbourne, written by Ozzy himself, as he remembers it. In Russian translation, it literally says, everything that I could remember. This is something I want to read. I left Black Sabbath, I told my father. So they're doomed, he said, and fell asleep. This is pure rock and roll, and the soul turned upside down, without fakery or hypocrisy. In this video, Ozzy doesn't shy away from the darkest aspects of his life. On the very first page, Ozzy tells us that he ended up in prison when he was around 18 years old. I have a feeling about you, John Osborne, my father said, after he drank a few bottles of beer. You'd either do something really special or you'll end up in prison. This has an 18+ sticker, like it says on the cover. This is a very brutally honest biography of Ozzy Osbourne. It's very sad and funny at the same time. In this story, Ozzy focuses on his life in Birmingham, in Aston, school, work, meeting up the guys from Black Sabbath, his prison time, his work experience, his way to success, and his life after Black Sabbath up until 2009, because that's the year the biography came out. Ozzy's writing style is very funny. However, this book contains a lot of profanity. He swears quite a lot. I remember that when I was flying from Moscow to Tbilisi, I had this book with me on the plane, and I read this in the plane, and it was amazing. I totally love to read it again. If you are in search for a proper musical biography, this is the one. Special thanks to Books Around Me for this recommendation. And third and last non-fiction I bought recently, and I have already read it. I saw this in the store and I knew I needed it. A History of Heavy Metal by Andrew O'Neill. The history of heavy metal brings us extraordinary stories of larger-than-life characters leading to excess. From the household names of Ozzy Osbourne and Metallica, to the brutal notoriety of the underground Norwegian black metal scene and the new wave of British heavy metal. It is the story of a worldwide network of rabid fans escaping everyday mundanity through music, of cutthroat corporate censored, ripping off those fans and the bands they worship to line their pockets. One of the funniest musical commentators that you will ever read. Alan Moore. Absolutely hilarious. Neil Gaiman. This book, like it says on the cover, covers the history of heavy metal, starting with blues, then going to Beatles, and then to Black Sabbath, and so on. Apart from heavy metal bands themselves, this book mentions David Bowie, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, and so on. A very important non-metal musicians that influenced heavy metal and other subgenres. I have a short review of this book on Instagram, and I'm going to make a video review of this book, but a more expanded version, because there are things I do want to talk about. By the way, there's one thing I do want to read to you. Yes, I know that this discussion has been done to death, but I do want to point this out. Go to any big metal show and you will see a mix of the die-hard long-haired patched denim types, like me, and also the short-haired, boring, trousered metal at weekend normal types, like you loser. That part was really funny. The way this guy addressed this topic was so funny. I couldn't resist not reading this. I will discuss this more in a separate review. Now moving on. Alright, now we moved on from non-fiction and now let's go to fiction. Different genres with musical themes. The first genre is fantasy. Here I'm going to show you Sword of Destiny by Andrzej Sapkowski, the second book in the Witcher series. You'd ask me, why are you picking up the second book and not the first one? I picked the second one, Sword of Destiny, because it contains a short story named A Little Sacrifice, because it involves a siren, Geralt, Jaskier, and another bard named Essie. As I remember, in this short story they're hunting the siren, and then Geralt finds out that bards are not only male but female too. That short story contains magic, sirens, bards, and so on. The next book I'm going to show you is the first book in the series of the graphic novels, Scott Pilgrim by Brian Lee O'Malley. Scott Pilgrim is a bassist. Here's Scott practicing with his band. Oh, guys, you can play this song. It's simple because they're mediocre musicians. Look, there's only 3 accords in this song. Scott Pilgrim was written between 2004 and 2010, as I remember. In 2010, by the way, the film came out. The whole plot of Scott Pilgrim is Scott Pilgrim fighting the 7 evil exes of the girl he likes and wants to be with, Ramona Flowers. Various funny things happen throughout the graphic novels. However, music plays a very essential part in Scott Pilgrim. In the third one, as I remember, there was even a battle of the bands. This one is great especially for indie rock fans and the culture that is portrayed in Scott Pilgrim, those old games, music, comic books and so on. A lot of things also happen on the stage in the series. The next book is a fantasy novel, Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Okay, now as I have this book in my hands in front of the camera, I realize that this book isn't completely music themed. However, as Crowley's storyline involves Queen. When he is in his car, his radio station constantly plays Queen. And also Crowley has a wide vinyl collection. One of the reasons he and Aziraphale they try to save the earth from the apocalypse is that they love their vinyl and book collections respectively. This book's musical theme is slightly weaker than the other books that I have. But it's still worth reading if you're a musician or music lover or book lover in general. The next book is also fantasy. Music is an absolute core of this book. The entire plot of the book happens because of one unfinished song. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles series. I recently decided to reread the book and I have already read 1/3 of it. As you can see, I have a lot of favorite moments here. We have a young lad named Quoth. Start of the story, Quoth is an adult. However, he tells the story of his life to the chronicle that comes to his tavern. And for the most of the book, Quoth is a teenager. He is a musician. He plays the lute. And him playing in taverns is a part of his story. There are a lot of scenes of discussion of music. Because this book has a lot of musical themes and the main character is a musician himself, I think that's the reason metalheads love this book so much. Well, at least I found out about the book from them. Special thanks to them because they led me to this masterpiece. I need to continue this book. Next book is young adult book. Just like Scott Pilgrim, this book is more for indie fans, I think. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Music is one of the essential themes of this book. The main character, he even makes a tape full of songs for one of his friends. And there's even a playlist of songs. Allow me to show it to you. Well, where is it? Oh, here, I found it. Playlist for his friend. And here it is. The story is about a young lad named Charlie who starts high school. He is in his first year and he meets two kids, Patrick and Sam, as they are in their last year. This book has a lot of comedy and a lot of drama. This focuses on Charlie's family and their drama and also his friends and their drama. But there are also a lot of funny moments. As someone who is not a fan of young adult genre at all, I don't read it, as I have mentioned in one of my previous videos. This book is surprisingly good, especially given the musical themes. The main characters, they discuss music, they make musical gifts for each other, well, the main character does. And there is also this infamous tunnel ride scene from the film. And the music that plays during the scene is Heroes by David Bowie. If you are searching for a proper young adult novel with musical themes, this one is very good. However, I do have to warn you that this one contains some, some quite dark moments. Now we have come to fantasy again. Any Tolkien novel contains musical themes. However, I decided to go with only one book, and I have chosen Beren and Luthien. Beren and Luthien is one of the 3 separate novels from the Silmarillion. The story is very simple. A human named Beren who meets an elvish princess named Luthien in the forest, and he finds her dancing and singing Well, her father doesn't approve of him and he sends him on deadly mission. And that's where the whole story starts. The thing I loved about this book that the Luthien is a singer, she has a very magical voice. And while I'm not a fan of the standard they love each other but the world is against them, blah 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 blah, this is surprisingly a very good story. It's very fairy tale like. After reading all the doomy chapters of the Silmarillion, the previous 18 chapters, this one was a breath of fresh air. I want to mention that the story told in Beren and Luthien is different from the one that is in the Silmarillion. For example, Luthien is named Tinovil here, where in the Silmarillion she was called Tinovil only by Beren, because he didn't know her name, but he was enchanted by her singing. And the way Luthien she meets Huan is different here. And this one also has this great character named Tivildo, Prince of Cats. When I read this book, I liked Tivildo, and it was kind of disappointment that he wasn't in the Silmarillion. Even though there is music in nearly every Tolkien novel, I'd say that this one, Beren and Luthien, is the most musical of them all. Probably because of the main character, Luthien. And now I want to recommend you two Stephen King novels. One is a novel and the other is a short story. The novel that I have here is one of Stephen King's most underrated novels that don't get talked about very often, and that's Revival. Oh, just look at the cover, it looks like Metallica's Ride the Lightning. What the story is about? It's about a rock musician named Jamie Morton, and he's either savior and friend or evil genius Charles Jacobs, a priest that has distanced himself from the church, and he opened the secret of the secret electricity that can either heal or destroy humans. Because the story contains the rock musician and mystical powers, I first read this online and then I ordered it. Can you imagine that I still haven't opened this book? I mean, I didn't reread this. I bought this simply for collection. The short story is that you know they got a hell of a band. The story is about a young couple traveling and getting lost in a very weird town. They try to get out, but they are trapped there. The town is full of people that also tried to escape but were trapped. And there were a lot of musicians there, real musicians mentioned, and the mayor of the town was Elvis Presley himself. Sounds very interesting, right? It's a scary short story that I read before I began buying a lot of Stephen King novels. And finally, yes, I know that this is going to sound like a shameless self-promotion, but I have to mention Nightingale Divine, my own novel. Music is the core of the novel, well, at least the singing. Just like Beren and Luthien, it also involves a singing elvish princess with a magical voice. However, my main character's L'Oreal story is different. I will make a separate video on how I wrote my debut novel. One thing I can say about my novel is that singing is literally everything. And that's all. These are all the recommendations. Write your own down in the comments. And that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment and follow me on social media. Link to my Linktree is down in the description. There is also a link to Amazon where you can buy my debut novel Nightingale Divine. See you next time. Goodbye.